Good day everyone! In this video, we talk about the history of Philippine education. Philippine educational system has a very deep history from the past in which it has undergone several stages of development going to the present system of education. A Philippine educational system during pre-colonial period are most children were provided with solely vocational training, which was supervised by parents, tribal tutors, or those assigned for specific specialized roles within their communities. And in most communities, stories, songs, poetry, dances, and advice regarding all sorts of community life issues were passed from generation to generation, mostly through oral tradition. And some communities utilize a writing system known as baybayin, whose use was wide and varied. During the Spanish period, the educational system of the Philippines was formal. The religious congregations paved the way and establishing schools for the primary level to the tertiary level of education. The schools focused on the Christian doctrines that time, and also there was a separate schools for boys and girls, and also wealthy Filipinos were given priority, and most native people were excluded from the more prestigious educational institution because as the colonists believed that the quality of education might threaten their hold over the population. And during the Decree 1863, they provided for the establishment of at least 2 free primary schools, one for boys and another for girls, in each town under the responsibility of the municipal government, and it also commended the creation of a pre-public normal school to train men as teachers. And during American regime 1898 to 1946, the students were given free school materials. There were 3 levels of education during the American period. The elementary level consisted of 4 primary years and 3 intermediate years. The secondary or high school level consisted of 4 years, and the third was the college or tertiary level. And during the Commonwealth period, under the Commonwealth, vocational and adult education were given emphasis. In 1940, several changes were made in the Philippine educational system by virtue of the Educational Act of 1940. Under this law, the elementary course was reduced from 7 years to 6 years. And during the Japanese occupation, when the Japanese occupied the Philippines in 1942, during the Second World War, they attempted to discourage the use of English and adopt Japanese as the major of education. However, school enrollment was low as families felt that their children were safer at home during this time. And the Japanese also established the Department of Instruction, which would later become the Department of Education in 1947. The Japanese departed the Philippines in 1946 and the Philippines finally gained full independence. And now, the Philippine educational system was patterned to the educational system of Spain and the United States after the liberation of the Philippines in 1946. Filipinos had moved in various directions of its own, and elementary and high school is compulsory, which is administered by the Department of Education. The start of the 21st century second decade saw a major improvement in the Philippine education system. In 2011, the Department of Education started to implement the new K-12 educational system, which also included a new curriculum for all schools nationwide. We noticed and realized that despite of issues and problems encountered the Philippines during the colonial period, the Spanish period, American period, and the Japanese period, they fully gained the independence. So we fully gained the independence. And that's why for me as a student, it is important know and to study the history of the educational system of our country in the past. Because for me, looking back at the past event, it helped us to shape present and the future. And also studying history of the Philippine education not only teaches what education is, but also where it came from and what it came to become in the future. And that way, it can help us to formulate better ideas and principles to provide large perspective. And as a future educator, studying history of Philippine education is a good academic exercise to improve teaching knowledge, and also it is a way for planning the present and future education development.